Hello, we're here again, and this is going to be The Truth Rises Still to the Top, Part 2. As I said before in Part 1, I said that we are redoing it because of all the problems we have had from YouTube about discussing facts with hard evidence, but we were naming a person, and so her privacy was being invaded. A privacy of a person, as I explained before, that is posted her name all over the web with her phone number, asking past and future patient to call her because she can set things straight, the record straight, and she can tell the truth about what really happened at this meeting, her version. So I don't see how that could be our showing evidence of the lie being posted on the web. I don't see how that's an invasion of privacy. That's presenting the truth with the evidence, which is still in the category of freedom of speech, but apparently is not. Their slander for 2 to 3 years is freedom of speech. Our answer to that with hard evidence, not hearsay like they use. Hard evidence, facts, documents. Well, that is not freedom of speech. That is invasion of privacy, and we cannot do it. So, as I said, we are dividing up the videos in 4 different sections. One is the case connected with this person that has been posting all over the web. Next, this one is about the court case. And then the other 2 that have been also polluting the web with misinformation. And after that, we are hoping that the public will be able to realize what is really going on, what the real motive of all these attacks, and where the truth lies. It's hard evidence that we are providing, and this is our evidence about a court case that had not one little bit of truth connected to it. It was all an abuse of our rights. It's an abuse of the court system. It's an abuse of this country's laws. It's an abuse of a corporation right to do business. It's an abuse of my privacy and my respectability through lies that don't make any sense on top of everything else. I have hard evidence that there are lies and none of them make any sense. So I'm presenting this, and you be the judge of what is going on. One of the reasons we are being attacked by everybody, the patient and the medical that is giving misinformation to the patient, is due to the fact that the normal healing process makes the lesion look worse for a while, because the immune system is attacking it to remove that tissue, so the area swells up, is hot. You can feel it, that something is going on. They said, I can feel that it's growing. No, that is the immune system attacking any kind of wound. But they hold that against us and say, no, it is your treatment that didn't work, and that's why the patient has this. For that reason, I like to show this page. And this comes from a page of, you see, Cancer Center of America. They have in one of their pages, they talk about photodynamic therapy. Now, this is the traditional photodynamic therapy because it involves a drug. So, Lase, FDA was involved in the process because it involves a drug. Well, this is really small. I have an enlargement page. It just cut off the Cancer Center of America, but you saw it up here in the first page. This is exactly the same thing, only enlarged a little bit. And up here at the top is tell you that only one location of Cancer Center of America, by the way, is offering PDT, and is new FDA approved treatment called photodynamic therapy, PDT. FDA approved. Now, what does FDA approve? FDA approves drugs to be used. Now, first they say FDA approved, then they say we're mainly used right now for esophagus cancer and early stage lung cancer. They are mainly used it for that. That's because they are capable of doing only that, not because you can't use it for anything else. You just don't have the right protocol to use it for other things. We do. and we understand what PDT is all about. We bypass all the drugs and we can do it without drugs, because it's not a chemical reaction that doctors think, it's a physical reaction, and it's really very easy to use. And one other thing that they say, let me try to find about the light source, it says is a low power laser is used in this type of photodynamic therapy. And mind this, which is not the same as the laser used in surgery. It's low power. That's what we say. All over our website it says low power laser, because you don't want to do any collateral damage. You don't want to damage anything except the tumor that absorbs the light, because it's being treated with an acid that will absorb the light. That's all it is. But the important thing about this statement is what they call side effects. Okay, here they talk about the advantages, which are pretty obvious because you're not removing anything, you're just killing it in place. But what they call side effects, okay, and then when you look at this, obviously you cannot read it because it's too small, but you can click and enlarge it in our recording. Our webmaster does that. The first say, it says local swelling inflammation, which can occur in and around your esophagus or lung, because they use it only for esophagus. So during the healing process, inflammation and swelling is involved. Okay, that's what we have. It's happening, and we use it for a lot bigger tumor that they use it. They use it for early stage. We use it for advanced cases, so obviously the swelling is a lot more. And we are being attacked and criticized for what is nature. It's your body that does that. That's the activity of your body. We have no control over nature. We cannot change what the immune system does, and that's how the immune system heals. Removes the dead tissue with the inflammation. That's what it does. The healing is always an inflammation. And of course later they talk about the side effect by the particular enhancer they use, which causes it linger on the skin for a long time, and then you cannot expose your body to light, because then you have a problem. But we don't have any of that, because we don't use the drug, we don't use that drug. So we don't have any of it. The only thing we have is the swelling and inflammation, which people have, and they say, oh, the doctor said it means that the cancer is growing because it's so extensive. It's extensive because we hardly get early stage. We only get advanced stage with huge tumors, so the inflammation is tremendous. And the healing is very slow. Just like the cancer took forever, the tumor took forever to grow, years and years. The healing also does the same thing. It's the reverse process, eliminating the dead tissue. It's slow. There is nothing we can do about it. Now, but that's an excuse to attack us. That shows how everything is based on misinformation and phony facts. What's next? Next is the lawsuit that was filed in February 2009 after we had already left Arkansas. Why would we leave Arkansas? Because we had a mole. The doctor that was working with us was actually a mole for the medical school. But the big thing happened when, you see this is an insert on the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, dated October 5, 2008, the race for the cure, breast cancer. This was an insert about the race for the cure. In the second page, you recognize, they called us if they want to put an ad, and this is our ad. And this is what started the end of the world. It was a simple ad, told the absolute truth, even though they don't want to hear it. Oh, photodynamic therapy is FDA approved, but not for breast cancer. No, photodynamic therapy is FDA approved. For what you use depends on the protocol you use. Just because people cannot figure out the right protocol for other type of cancer, it does not mean that cannot be used. So this article happened October 5th. This is Arkansas Democrat Gazette, November 3, 2008. First page. At the bottom of the first page, this. The medical school in Little Rock saying that he has been testing for 20 years. This type of treatment that we offer, but using tiny particles, means they use the nanotubes, the carbon nanotubes. Now, mind you, carbon nanotubes were not around 20 years ago, okay? So, her point. But that's they're saying they've been doing the testing for the research for killing cancer cells this way, injecting the nanotubes to the tissue and into the tissue. Actually, they do it intravenous, which is not very practical, and it's not very effective. And then they treat with the laser light that we do. The same thing. You can read this article, and this person is the offender. Because we had a meeting with him, trying to work with him I don't remember if it was 2002 or 2003. It might have been 2002. And all he was trying to do is extract information on how to copy the protocol. But they mentioned 20 years. Well, the leash therapy, most of the methodology and the detail, not all of them, but most of the detail were in place in 2006. In 2000, no, I'm sorry, were in place in 1986. Yes, it's been so long that sometimes I get confused about the time. In 1986 we developed it. Think how long ago we developed it. And then in 1988, 20 years, we approached the medical school trying to get an agreement, working agreement, so we could do the testing and introduce this. And the terms and conditions we got from them to do this work was basically us doing all the work and providing them all the detail on the information, and then go away, be paid peanuts for our effort and our technology, and then disappear. It was so ridiculous that we said, forget you. So after that, they thought they were really smart enough to figure out what to do themselves, and that's why they have been working for 20 years now, being able to figure out what to do. And in those 20 years, we struggled with money, tried to bring it up. 22 years for us, and right now, at the time, in 1988, and that is well more than that, okay? So, that is the story, and that's why they tried to attack us, because we were treating people, we were getting results, we were getting good results, everything was effective. They couldn't do it, they couldn't copy, so they attacked us. And of course, I don't have the copy of that document here, but you can find on Lase Medinc website, lasemedinc.com, you can find on the copycat page, you can find when they announced, mind you, immediately after filing the lawsuit against Lase Medinc and myself, and stating that what we were offering was a fraud because it was junk science, what we were doing. The medical school said they had a breakthrough, and they were asking for grant money, investment money, donation, whatever they could get, to continue the research on this breakthrough they had, which is the absolute description of what we do. They didn't have certain details, but that was the exact. Then eventually they got some of the detail from a couple, I think probably just one. They were a couple of corporate, not just basher, they were betraying the corporation. They were stockholders betraying the corporation. And they provided, thinking that the medical school would work with them, they provided some information to the medical school. And then they stopped asking me the wavelength and the answer that we used, but they still couldn't fix it because the person that gave information was not really knowledgeable enough on the protocol to do it right. So they had a problem with that, and that's why they pushed for me that I had to give him the protocol, because the protocol was not a corporate secret. The judge said that was not a corporate secret. That's the same judge that violated the 14th Amendment and the Code of Civil Procedure. So you can go on our website and see the papers and the comments and why they were doing exactly what we were doing, except they weren't doing it quite right. Anyway, and they weren't getting the same result. But they were running human trials. In fact, they call it clinical trial. I call it human trial because they're using human as guinea pig. In fact, there is this article that we printed out after the lawsuit was, well, no. We didn't have we didn't find out about the lawsuit until April, and this was printed out in February. But if you read this, since 1988 they were trying to run human trial about what is exactly our methodology. Obviously they didn't have the correct protocol and they had problems. That's why they wanted our information. And how do you do it? Well, push you against the wall with phony lawsuits. And if that doesn't work, ruin us financially so we couldn't operate. And that's what they were actively doing. And that's how they came up with this lawsuit. And a lot of people out there are confused by all the mess, and they think that the person that filed the lawsuit was dead or is dead now. No, she's not dead. She wasn't dead. Not only she's not dead, she was declared free of cancer before she even filed a lawsuit.
A jury in Arkansas awarded a former patient $2.5 million because the treatment did not work.
I'll show you the paperwork. See, here. First of all, they're saying that we lured her to our location with false information. And we got talking into not going for standard treatment, and so that was a fraud, and that was punishable by law because we cannot tell people not to have chemo. So you see here, that's Westphal, Therese, that's a record, and as you know, when they give you the disc of the record, you can print it out, but you cannot modify it. So this is what it is, and if you read down here on the bottom, she said that she went for a second opinion because when she had, and this was in November 2007, shortly before she came to see us. She went for a second opinion because she didn't like the first opinion and what they were offering her to do. So she went to see somebody else, and what happened? The second opinion said the same thing than the first, because that always happens. They don't contradict each other. Like my father used to say, dogs don't bite each other. And I'm not sure that that is true, but doctors certainly do not. So, she went for a second opinion. After that, she decided, no, she wasn't going to go for that. And she went and looked in a health food store for something else. And she found us, and she came for treatment. Everything was fine till 3 months after the treatment, which is the usual immune response starting out. She was really not an honest person, and she was trying actually to extract money from us to spread the word about our treatment to other women. She said she was interested, she wanted other women to know how well it worked. She even wrote the testimonial on how well it worked. When we said, we cannot pay you regular salary. We can pay you like all the other doctors do, a referral fee, but we cannot pay you a regular employee paycheck every week. We cannot afford that. We're not that wealthy. We're not wealthy at all. So she got mad about that, and she just was out for revenge, and you know, the typical case of cut your nose to spite your face. That's exactly what she did, only she ended up having her unnecessarily her breast removed. But that came later. So she went to back to an oncologist to have her breast tested after our treatment because the breast had gotten swollen, was red, it was sore, hot, typical things that happen. And see, that's still her file. And what it says is that they're measuring, they did a PET scan. And as I tell every patient, you cannot do a PET scan. And we'll go over why you can't do a PET scan in a minute, okay? What a PET scan looks for. And they did the PET scan on April 2008, which is 5 months after she came. And they said that the measurement greatly increased, have invaded most of the breast, and they give you centimeters. So I added the translation in inches, because most people go by inches, not centimeters. And you can see it's 4.21 inches by 2.6 0.04 inches by 4.33 inches. That is huge, okay? And you must keep that in mind. It is really big. But a PET scan looks at inflammation. It does not look at actual cancer. It looks at the inflammation. They assume that the area is inflamed because the cancer is creating new vessel to feed itself. So what the PET scan tells you, they call a measurement of the size of the cancer. That isn't. If you don't do a CT scan that actually find the mass and measure, you have nothing. But see, they did a PET scan, and the PET scan said that. So, oh my God, she is in real trouble, and she needs chemo immediately. Okay, now I wanted to show you a book, a page from a book. And this book, what does it say? PET CT imaging. And the comment they make about the PET CT imaging. Read this, okay? This paragraph down here. This is the picture with the images. This is the first paragraph. The second paragraph down here. However, benign and some well-differentiated tumor can also consume considerable amount of glucose. That's what you use as an answer to show what's going on. In addition, read this, inflammatory tissue exhibit increased rate of glucose metabolism due to glycolytic, and then they go in activity of inflammation cells. So you have an inflammation. The PET scan tells you, whoa, you have this thing, and that's what's called positive. But it could be positive for cancer, also could be positive because it's an inflammation. And all they did for her before they sent her to chemo, because she had been diagnosed with cancer, they said, oh well, that's bladder cancer. They totally ignored any other possibility and said, you have to have chemo. Now, she was resisting chemo, and with this, it's still her file. See what he said? The patient declined treatment or steroid because she doesn't want to interfere with the program of improved immune system. Okay? Which means she did what we told her not to do. We tell all the patients, do not go alternative and use immune boosters. You're worried about the cancer spreading. It's not going to spread because it's dead. It wasn't anywhere any before. It's not going to be now because it's dead. If you use the immune booster, you're going to make an explosive immune reaction. The process of healing involve a lot more swelling, a lot more discomfort, and on top of that, you're going to think you have more cancer. And of course, if you do a PET scan, that's what happens. And that's what it happens to her. And they scared her enough that she went for chemo. She started chemo in May. Look, this is her file. 4 sessions of chemo. Look what it says. On July 7, 2008, PET negative. She had nothing. Of course she had nothing because she did not have cancer, so she had an inflammation. You take chemo, that suppresses your immune system, you no longer have an inflammation, and the PET scan says nothing. She had nothing.
A jury in Arkansas awarded a former patient $2.5 million because the treatment did not work.
And then the summary on July 10, 2008 is here. It's still a file, see? I'm not making up anything. See what it says? The previously identified abnormality have also resolved on the current scan. Down here, remarkable resolution. She no longer has cancer.
Because the treatment did not work.
That could not happen with 2 sessions of chemo. All you're depressing the immune system. And with that happened, this is July 2008. Now, let's move over. See this. June, it's still a file. June 15, 2009. And I think I have an earlier one, but I cannot find it right now. One that was another PET scan that was done before she filed a lawsuit, and it said there was still nothing there from the summer before, nothing. PET scan, but this is even further. See, June 15, 2009. Read what it says. This. She said the patient had seen another doctor, the second opinion, to discuss various options. She didn't do it. Then she had the other testing. Then she had some chemo. Okay, the patient before that opted to not have surgical treatment, and she had PDT of the breast, and then she had the 2 months of chemotherapy. But see, still in June 2009, MRI, breast is reported as negative. MRI of the breast is reported as negative.
Because the treatment did not work.
And recent PET scan is also negative.
Because the treatment did not work.
This is July 2009. No, I'm sorry, it's June 2009. This is way after the lawsuit was filed. And she still had nothing.
Because the treatment did not work.
She still was in a situation when there was nothing going on. Well, what they said is that she had an MRI that said nothing. She had a PET scan that said nothing. But the mammogram she had said there was some mass. Gee, of course there is some mass because there is all that tissue that hasn't been flushed out. But a mammogram never tells you if it's malignant or not. It never tells you that it's cancer. It tells you there is something, and then with other testing like MRI, PET scan, and another thing, has to be determined what it is. They didn't do anything. They did the MRI, the PET scan that said negative, but they said, well, but she needs to have her breast removed.
In late April and early May, she found out from medical doctors that in fact her cancer had spread and that she was inoperable.
And I think that has something to do with the lawsuit. They felt that the lawsuit didn't have any significance if she still had her breast. So on August 17, she agreed to have, this is what she was getting ready for surgery, and she agreed to have her breast removed. When they remove the breast, they say, oh yeah, we found that it's ductal carcinoma in situ, but it has high grade ductal carcinoma, but read that, extensive necrosis. Okay, what does that mean?
Because the treatment did not work.
If you go and have chemo, the chemo damages, it's poison. It damages the nucleus of the cell. So the nuclear membrane and the cell membrane is destroyed, and then the cells are flushed out. They are not in place. Necrosis is when the cell is left in place and is slowly decomposing. It's called coagulation necrosis. That is not produced by chemo. That is not produced by radiation, because radiation basically fried to a crisp the tissue, so it damages everything. The only way you can produce some necrosis that you can see in a biopsy is if you have hyperthermia treatment. And here it says extensive. That means there was a lot of that tissue. Now, what they could still recognize the cancer. Yes, you can, because coagulation necrosis affects the cytoplasm of the cell. When they do the biopsy, they only look at the nucleus, and that's how they decide if it is aggressive or not. Okay, because it depends how many new nuclei are in the initial nucleus, and the more they're there, the more aggressive the cancer is. But And of course the cellular membrane is not damaged, but that doesn't mean that it's growing. It looks like a freeze frame in place. You see a picture, it's frozen in place, and you see that. But that does not mean that the cancer is alive. It's just that the decomposition of the nucleus has not happened. And since not everything happens at the same time, you can see a lot of that tissue, but you can see some that is frozen in place. It's not alive, it's damaged. And if they did analysis of the cytoplasm, like I showed in the video that compares the cell to an egg, the yolk is unaltered, but the white of the cell is coagulated and shows that opaque white color. And that's what happens. When the cell are decomposing, you see the opaque white coloration of the membrane of the cytoplasm decomposition, and then the nucleus will decompose, and then they won't be able to recognize the cancer. And they had a lot there, but not everything, and that's why they said it's still cancer, without really looking at it properly. Whether they did that out of ignorance or intentional, I have no idea. And that is just speculation based on other experience. The reason why we did this recording, this section we have separated from the rest. This section of The Truth Rises to the Top was to show you that everybody in this absurd court case that, by the way, as I said before, violates the 14th Amendment and the Constitution.
You did not? It's illegal because the corporation needed an attorney, and that's why I have been told. The whole thing is illegal. And I really, if you have that attitude of helping Bond, that's fine. I really couldn't care less. This is the truth, whether you publish the truth or not. Nowhere in the United States you can have a trial where there is only one side there. An excuse of saying I didn't show up, it's just ridiculous. Talk to an attorney. You cannot have a trial with only one side. You can in Russia, not in the United States. And that's enough.
Are you going to pay the judgment?
And also the Code of Civil Procedure, is that the reality is that the patient did not suffer from our treatment. It's actually she is alive because of our treatment. Now the comment at the end was she in just a few months had gone from having nothing into having stage 4 cancer. It's impossible. So that is just perjury by everybody involved.
In late April and early May, she found out from medical doctors that in fact her cancer had spread and that she was inoperable.
But the reason why we're also bringing them up again is because we want to show the truth. That is it's all based on lie. Lase Made Inc. method works, has great results, and people are doing fine. The ones that don't believe the results because they're taken back by the healing process and the immune system attacking the dead tissue, that is a natural process. There is very little that can be done at it. By the way, there is something now that come to the surface that can be done and ease off the situation, but it wasn't evident at the time of these patients. So the reason why we wanted to show you what happened is because the whole thing is a farce. It's an attempt to cover the truth, and that's why we did the video. And on top of that, we did the video, and of course that rubs a few people the wrong way involving all this. That's a conspiracy to put me in a position where I cannot do anything and therefore I cannot help anybody. They are reviving, even though the plaintiff attorney last year made this great conference statement to the press by saying, well, we know that we probably cannot get any money out of Lase Made Inc. Dr. Carpenter, but we are doing this to show, and actually I think it's still on their website, we are doing this to show how bad they are, so women that are considering going to Lase Made Inc. for breast cancer, they'll be dissuaded and won't go there. So it's obviously showing we did this to ruin the reputation, so they cannot do business, they cannot stay in business, they cannot function. That's what we did. Well, apparently, once we started putting out hard evidence of the truth, that went rubbed them really wrong, so they decided to go after us again and try to collect on money that we don't have. But that's what happens. I don't know if it happens everywhere in America, but certainly in Arkansas. So unfortunately, our legal system needs to be fixed, because there is a constitution, there is a Bill of Rights, but apparently people don't seem to be following it in some places, in some instances. It's not justice for all, unfortunately, like advertised. It might be injustice for a selected individual. That's what it comes down to. Injustice for selected individual to satisfy special interest group and their finances for an effort to maintain the status quo. But all of this tells you she had nothing, and she had the lawsuit filed and continued on, and she agreed to have her breast removed to make her situation worse, so she had a bigger case, and she lost the breast for nothing. And then, of course, after surgery, which always happened, the PET scan indicated inflammation in the lymph node, which is a normal physical reaction. After surgery, you have inflammation everywhere, and the lymph nodes are inflamed. And again, they use the inflammation as spreading of cancer, which is wrong, because it happens to any surgery, even if you don't have cancer. And they found that as an excuse to give her more chemo. Not that much, I mean, this time they went 4 months, I think. But more chemo, more torture for nothing. And all for the sake, and probably they convinced her into that because they told her she was going to get a lot of money out of this lawsuit, which they knew they wouldn't get anything because that court has no jurisdiction over me or Lase Medic. So, absolutely ridiculous. But I wanted to point this out because the web is full of misinformation, of lies that damage not only Lase Medic, but even people that could be saved from the torture of cancer treatment and could be living well and healthy from after our treatment, and they don't do it because they are afraid and they believe these lies. Now there are a lot more of those cases, not a lot more, 2 more to discuss on the web, and we're going to do that in the part 2 of this video. But I think that it's a good introduction to you of what is really the truth of what is happening out there. So till the next section, good day.